Hey friends, we have a week to go. I have several quick things I'll cover today. I'm going to talk about doing your research on all the candidates and issues you're going to be voting on and how to get that information, because finding information is really hard, even though we have the internet at our fingertips. I'm going to give my response and a little bit more information on who I'm voting for and some of the information that led to that is not going to be reported in most of the news. Important stuff today. I'm going to try and do it quick. So I'm going to talk about why my voice is terrible also. First, a week or two ago, I talked about the cost of speaking out versus the cost of not. At the time, I spent the vast majority of my time spending on talking about the cost of not speaking out. What is the cost of speaking out? Well, there are probably going to be some people who think I'm crazy. There are probably going to be some people who don't want to talk to me anymore. I have been sharing this information through my business. I have an online card making business. Bunch of people on my email list, people on my YouTube channel. I've been sharing this stuff there too. Tamed down a little bit, but most of what I'm talking about here is not issues in politics. It's values and it's morals and it's trying to stand together. But anyway, I've had some people email me, tell me they're not going to be my customer anymore and whatever. I've had lots more people cheer me on. So I'm looking at the cost of speaking out as, okay, I'm going to lose some business. If I don't speak out, if we don't speak out, if we don't stand up, losing our nation is a way bigger deal than if I would lose my entire business. I'm not going to lose my entire business, but if I did, if it helps save our nation, totally worth it. That's the way I'm looking at this. So, okay. Information on how to research what you're voting on. I know a lot of you have voted early. That's fantastic. How to research what you're voting on. I used a website called vote411.org. Vote, the number 4, the number 1, the number 1. Vote411.org. You can go there, put in your address. It's going to give you all of the national and state things that you are voting on. It's going to show you the different candidates. Some of the candidates may have information like they've answered all the questions and they've given you all their stances on things. If not, for the candidates that haven't, search the internet and find their website. They're all going to have websites where you can find out about who they are and what they stand for. Voting without researching is irresponsible, just like not voting is. Let's research. Like, even if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, like, not all of those people are going to stand for the same things you do. So we need to research these things. For our local issues, I searched for Indiana voter guide or Indiana ballot info, something like that. And I found a website that I could put in my address, and I found all of our local elections. Same thing. If you don't know who any of the people are, search for them. They should have a presence online, find their websites, learn more about them. Yeah, it takes a little time, but to have a functional world to live in, it's totally worth it, right? And then talk to your friends and neighbors and family and children and parents and all the people and help them to know as well what you have researched, because lots of people aren't researching. Issues are very, very, very state issues. There are lots of, I think a lot of them are constitutional amendments on the ballot in different states. Abortion, marijuana, non-citizen voting, I think, or there's another one, I forget. They're really important. So my recommendation for this is to search until you find a website that is pro those issues, and search until you find a website that is opposed to, so that you can read all the information. A lot of the wording on these is very confusing. The abortion ones are constitutional amendments, I believe all of them, and it is basically unrestricted for any reason at any time, like up to 9 months. And because they're constitutional amendments, it's going to be very difficult to change those if they pass. But I hear that like all they're going to tell you things in the ads and all the stuff that it's for healthcare and it's for, it's for that stuff. They're going to tell you whatever. Don't believe the ads. Just don't believe the ads. Look it up, research it. Okay. My voice. Yesterday I had some of my amalgam fillings in my teeth, the silvery looking ones, removed and replaced with whatever they use now, porcelain, or I don't know, whatever they use now. Why did I have this done? Well, because in all my learnings about natural healing and wellness and things, I have learned lots of things they're not going to tell us at the doctor or the dentist. So those fillings release mercury into your body. Heavy metals in our body is really damaging, and a constant flow of mercury into your body has a huge impact on thyroid health, has a huge impact on autoimmune diseases, and I'm sure lots of other things, but those are the ones that I've read books about where they talked about those two issues specifically. So I had them removed, even though lots of dentists still offer them. They're not going to tell you that it's bad for your body. Why am I talking about this? This is why I think some of that, they have to remove them in a real special way so it doesn't dump all that mercury into your body. I think my not being able to talk very well today is a response to whatever was dumped into my body yesterday. Why am I talking about this? Because why wouldn't they tell you this? Why wouldn't people know this? If it's really bad for you, why are they allowed to do it? I'm using it as an illustration for how the information available to us today is really not a good representation of the information available in the world. And a lot of the information available to us doesn't have our best interest in mind. Okay, that's my point. Okay, my response the other day, I talked through the candidates. I talked through all the reasons we don't like them, either one of them. And I talked through what we have to take into account with like media information and other countries heavily trying to influence our election and take into account all these things. And then I shared who I'm voting for and some of why. There are lots more reasons I didn't share in that video. If you want to see that video, go look it up. Who I'm going to go vote for. It's from Saturday. And there were 4 more things I wanted to mention because I left so much stuff out. The candidate I'm voting for is Donald Trump. If you automatically are appalled at me and my decision, my first question for you is, do you watch any news besides mainstream common stuff available everywhere, like normal newspapers and normal news networks? Are you watching anything that would be considered conservative? Our media hates Donald Trump, hates him with a passion, and they're not going to report good stuff about him. So when you start listening to other news, unless you're listening to both, I would argue that you cannot consider yourself an educated voter, because most of the mainstream stuff, social media, all of it is very one-sided. Unless you're very much seeking out the other side to listen and to learn and to make an educated decision, then it's not an educated decision. It is, then you're doing what the media wants you to do, okay? So if you want to make up your own decision, you have to listen to both and then make your decision. Several other reasons why I will be voting mostly Republican. The transgender agenda. If we are not aware, I'm just trying to make people aware of things that may not make your news, okay? Minnesota and California are basically called trans refuge states, where they've made these laws. I was just doing a whole bunch of research on Minnesota. And here's the thing, when you start to look this up, it's really hard to find real information. You basically have to dig and like go find the actual law and read that and then try and understand it. And it's weird legal terminology because it's confusing. And a lot of these people reporting on these things are biased. They're going to breeze over some of it so that people don't get all fiery about the stuff they're not okay with. So Minnesota right now, anyone is welcome to go there at any age without parental consent to have transgender health care performed. There are a lot of other states who have made rules protecting parents' rights, giving parents authority to make that decision for their children until they turn 18. The Minnesota legislation signed by Tim Walz is that we don't recognize any of anyone else's rules. When they come here, we have jurisdiction over them, and we will provide the health care that they are seeking. There's a lot more to it. California, the schools now, like kids. Okay, so I would ask you this: if someone determines that your child who's under the age of 18 has cancer, would we're calling this healthcare, so we're making it a healthcare debate. If someone who has cancer under the age of 18, would anyone have the obligation to tell you that? I used to be a teacher. I, by law, was required to report if I knew that a child was in danger from someone else or considered hurting themselves. I was required by law, okay? I actually ended up in one of those situations at one point. It was a struggle, it was terrible. But I did what I was supposed to. Okay, so if your child has cancer, should a teacher or a doctor or whoever have to report that to you? You would think so if they're a minor. So a law was signed into effect by California's governor that if a child changes at school, changes their name or their gender, the school is not required to tell the parent that. So we're calling this health care for mental health, for health reasons, but we don't have to inform the parents now that we're talking about this particular issue. But before, okay, we're like all these, like, it's okay for me to do this, but not you to do this. It's not okay anymore. Okay. News, the transgender agenda, abortions. So, there's lots of stuff going on with the abortions, allowing them until the baby is officially born, that long, like 9 months. And I just wanted to share, Tim Walz repealed a Born Alive, a Born Alive Infants Act, that, let me read to you what the Born Alive Infants Protection Act was. It was enacted in 2015. It stated that a born alive infant as a result of an abortion, so if the abortion doesn't work and this child is born, this act said this child shall be fully recognized as a human person and accorded immediate protection under law. Additionally, all responsible measures consistent with good medical practice should be taken by the responsible medical personnel to preserve the life. So once the child is actually born, we recognize them as a human and we're trying to take care of them. So this was repealed by Governor Walz and the government in Minnesota in 2023. And so they're talking about there's instances of these babies that were not properly aborted, who were born alive, and no one takes care of them, so then they basically die. So where's the line? When is it okay and when is it not okay? Is there a line? Is the line that there's no line at all? Is it that, oh, well, it's okay until they're an hour old, or oh, it's okay until they're... When we turn black and white into gray, where does the line, like, when is it too much? Some of the other things that went away as so there's these stories of these babies that, like, there was one, the abortion didn't work, the baby was alive, was born alive, somebody found it in a closet. They didn't know what to do. It's in a closet. Okay. There used to be a report on how many of these failed abortions didn't work and then the babies are born alive. The report went away with the repeal of that act, so there's no longer a report available to look up. Other things that went away with the repeal of that was people had to wait 24 hours to have an abortion. Parents of minors had to be notified, and there was no telemedicine allowed to prescribe medication for abortions. So all that went away. So now that there's no wait period on it, parents don't have to be notified of minors. And now telemedicine apparently is allowed to prescribe medication for doing that. If your news doesn't report this, and if it's important to you, The last thing I forgot to mention in my video the other day was borders. If you were alive for 9/11, you remember how seriously we took our national security. What is going on at the southern border is appalling, and it's really easy to ignore, I guess, for some people until they show up in your backyard or until one of those convicted felons coming across the border assaults you or one of your family members. Okay, voting. If you don't hear any of these things on your news, I encourage you to find some more news, some different news. There are issues with election integrity. Several ballot boxes have already been set on fire. There are states trying to remove non-citizens from their ballot rolls, and it's a court battle whether they're going to be allowed to or not. I believe Texas was requesting assistance from our government to sort out their ballot roll because there are so many people there who are not legal. I believe they were rejected on that. I really just encourage you to listen to these things. Okay. And what are we going to do? Friends, our nation was founded on faith under a belief in God. Our laws, our Bill of Rights, our Declaration of Independence, all these things came from the principles of the Bible, of all these things that God created us as people who should be able to live as people and not be treated as prisoners or slaves or subjects to do as the king commands. Our George Washington could have been crowned king. Our original people at one point wanted to crown him as king, and he said, basically, that's absurd. I don't want anything to do with that. He was offended that they even said that because they had been fighting for freedom for a reason, and then they get to that point, and he's like, that's ridiculous. No, absolutely not. Okay? Some people care about us and our values and our freedoms, and we really need to work through all the information and search hard for balanced information so we can make a decision and figure out what's actually going on. This is worth fighting for. You know, Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy, used to have the Dirty Jobs show. He made a movie called Something to Stand For not too long ago. I can encourage you to look it up. It's got some really interesting history of normal people who did amazing things. This is something to stand for. What are we going to do? We're going to pray for our country. Keep praying, friends. Friday, we're going to fast and pray. 6:30 in the evenings, set an alarm on your phone, pray for our country. And we have got our worship night at our house for election night arranged. I'm terrified. Officially. We're going to turn on some tunes on a TV and we're going to sing Out to Jesus on election night, because while everybody's worried about the numbers pouring in and whatever, we're going to look to the one who has all the answers. Arrange a worship night at your church, invite over some friends, turn on some tunes, sing, pray, whatever. The God who created this nation is still here. He is still alive. He wants to know that we turn to him, that we look to him. He wants to hear from us. I've said this before, but let's see if I can remember it. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear them from heaven. I will forgive their sins and I will heal their land. Bye, friends.